moving on now to the Senate Intelligence Committee, which has just finally released the long-awaited final volume of its investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 election. The fifth and final chapter spans 1,000 pages and looks into counterintelligence concerns stemming from the possibility of collusion between Moscow and the 2016 campaigns. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis. So, Olivia, what are we learning from this final volume, and how is it different from the report that came from former special counsel Robert Mueller?
Well, Vlad, as you just said, yes, the report has just come in, close to 1,000 pages, and is among the most highly anticipated volumes that this Senate committee was expected to produce, not least because it will retread a lot of the territory that the special counsel covered. And it does read initially, we've got a team pouring through it right now, but as a who's who of some of the household names that we had come to become familiar with over the past 3+ years. Just as a quick digest, we have documentation of Paul Manafort, the Trump campaign's former campaign manager, who actually formed a close and lasting relationship with somebody who we know now is a Russian intelligence officer. That's Konstantin Kilimnik. It says that on numerous occasions, Manafort sought to secretly share campaign information with Kilimnik. We don't know why, but it says that nonetheless, this was sensitive internal polling data that he did pass on. The committee found that Manafort's presence on the campaign and its proximity to President Trump created these opportunities for Russian intelligence officers to try to penetrate and sort of gain influence in that inner sanctum. There's a digest on WikiLeaks and how it actively sought to engage with Russian intelligence services to try to influence the election, to play a key role in that effort, and that the Trump campaign may have known about it and closed an eye sort of to the provenance of some of those materials and still sort of used it to leverage and gain an advantage in the campaign. Nonetheless, the acting committee chairman, Marco Rubio, says unequivocally that there's absolutely no evidence that President Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia in order to seek to meddle in the 2016 campaign. You'll get a different take from the vice chairman, Senator Warner, who said that this is nonetheless a documentation of breathtaking levels of interaction between Russian operatives and the campaign. So unlike the Mueller report, this is not intended to come to any sort of legal conclusions. As we know, the term collusion is a little bit fuzzy in that there's not really a clear-cut legal definition about it, of it. This is really intended to be more of a narrative, laying out, what happened, how it happened, who was involved, and why, and is supposed to be sort of more of a readable digest of what went down in 2016.
Olivia, the release of this report, as you know, comes as a separate investigation led by U.S. Attorney John Durham, is said to be nearing its final stages. What can you tell us about that investigation, and when might we get a closer look at it?
Sure. So that U.S. Attorney John Durham is looking more closely into how and why the FBI opened its investigation first into the Trump campaign. And there's also another aspect that he's looking into in terms of the intelligence community's analytic work, how it arrived at the conclusions that it did as to what Russia was motivated by and what operations it engaged in order to interfere in 2016. There have been varying estimates as to the timing of the release of that report. The Attorney General has said publicly that he will not wait until after the election. We saw one development late last week in which a former FBI lawyer was expected to plead guilty to amending a document that was part of an application to obtain surveillance on Carter Page, a former Trump campaign aide. So we're still waiting on that one, Vlad, and we're expecting some incremental developments in the coming weeks.
The release of this volume comes after the U.S. intel community assessed that Russia is actively seeking to, quote, denigrate presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden. So what kind of impact do the findings of this report have as we look ahead to this year's elections?
Sure, and I'm sure that we will see once we get to the recommendations of this report that there are plenty of warnings about why what happened in 2016 really can't and shouldn't happen again. It is remarkable that despite the fact that we have laid out all of what we know at this point about what Russia did in 2016, that they are back. They're very much undeterred, and that they are simply updating their tactics for a 2020 scenario. So yes, the intelligence community did issue a statement recently documenting what they believe Russia is up to now, including, again, the weaponization of leaks that are supposed to be damaging to the presumptive Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, and to boost, in some spheres, the candidacy of Donald Trump. You know, we also saw the president late this weekend retweet an account that included some of that leaked information. So you will really see, I think, an urging that, you know, let's not repeat the mistakes that were made in 2016 and have them sort of affect and confuse the electorate again in 2020.
All right, Olivia Gazis for us. Thank you, Olivia, as always. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Vlad.